Marvel's Phase 4 gave us incredible content. It's hard to choose just one best project or favorite project, but me, I've always been biased. Sure, my favorite comic has always been Hawkeye's My Life as a Weapon that I always wanted to be adapted. And don't get me wrong, it was great. And surely Loki had such a great season that it immediately became a favorite. But there remains just one more project that I believe has become one of Marvel's greatest treasures. Don't worry, it's not a guessing game, you must have read the title by now. Moon Knight checks all the boxes. It's a great origin story. It has accurate, inoffensive cultural appreciation. Marvel's first Egyptian superhero. I'm not talking about a supervillain. Definitely not talking about Apocalypse or Farouk, who's... I don't even know what to say. And lastly, Oscar Isaac. Season 1 of Moon Knight was a thrill from the very first episode to its last. They had 6 episodes to cram in as much character complexity in it, build up a plot, and introduce so many characters. Save for that one god who was difficult to work with. And mind you, they had like 30 minutes an episode. Arguably, the worst thing about Moon Knight was that it ended. Gone too soon. We keep hearing it's coming back, but like, so is Blade? Sorry, too soon? And I know I should be more patient, but it's never been one of my virtues. So I took to the comics to find more material. And with that, here are some things that I would love to see adapted in season 2, potentially. Please forgive me if I butcher her name. I've looked at Google and the name doesn't exist. So I think it was made up for the comic. So I get some leeway not pronouncing it correctly. Don't come at me. One thing I would love to be adapted is Beatrice Alaroon. Like I said, not even gonna attempt to pronounce it correctly. But it's Mark's kid. And if you heard this and went, another father-daughter relationship? Don't we already have enough of that? First of all, sit down. Okay, sit down. She's got pink hair. I'm just kidding. Yes, we do have enough dads in the MCU, but if adapted correctly, this might work, guys. For those of you who don't know, Mark was briefly with Marlene. I just realized I wrote Mark with a K in my notes, but just once. Just once. I'm not a fake fan, I promise. Anyway, he was briefly with Marlene. They're on and off all the time in the comics, so I'm not even gonna attempt to point this out on a fictional timeline. But one of these days, Marlene was like, enough. You're bad for my blood pressure. I think we should separate. So they did. So the next time Mark sees her is when Bushman and the Sun King go to her house to threaten her, and that's when he finds out that Marlene and Jake had been romantically involved, and by romantically, they have a daughter. And mind you, I think this would be a very clever way to introduce Jake. Real comic book fans know that he's not the one-dimensional hitman that we see in the end of the last episode. And while this Easter egg helped introduce him to fans of the show only, it led to some unfortunate mischaracterization. Namely that he's evil and his job is murder. Which isn't true. He's a silly guy. He's a silly guy with a silly mustache and a silly hat and a silly little taxi. Okay? He's just trying to live. And he loves this kid. I mean, she doesn't know it's her dad. She calls him Uncle Jake, which is... it's so cute. They love each other and they hang out all the time without Mark's knowing, which I think is also a very good opportunity for them to clash first and then to bond. I think if adapted, it would be the perfect way to introduce him, give us these awesome moments of banter. Just think about it. You'd be hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Another thing that would be very interesting to see is Mark's own understanding of DID, which again could be shown to us by adapting this scene in which Mark finally explains DID to his daughter in very simple terms. I mean, it's a way to show how much he's grown and pursued understanding of his mental health without expository dialogue. It would be cute. Plus, Steven with Beatrice? Ah, my heart would explode. I'm not even kidding, like, that would be so adorable. Now for Marlene, it won't make much sense to keep her character or adapt her character because we already have Layla. Now, bear in mind, Layla is not a substitution for Marlene. They're not meant to be the same character. The only similar thing between them is what happened to both their dads and them being Mark's romantic interests. But if I'm gonna say something, is that Layla's way cooler. But that's not the point. The point is, how do we bring Marlene in without bringing her, but just to have like a mother for Beatrice? Well, we bring in Gina. Gina is a waitress that works at a restaurant that Jake frequents a lot. Now, by their own standards, they're really close. They're best friends. Jake goes to her for information and, you know, just for a little pick-me-up after he's done work. Just think about it. More Easter eggs for the fans. Get me into the writer's room. Just more Jake. Please. Please, we didn't really get enough of him. We've already covered the confusion that comes from not knowing how many altars are there or when they refuse to communicate. It would be interesting to see Mark and Steven come up with a plan to talk to him, or better yet, we see a scene in the mindscape. And that would be incredible. Just more banter, more angst, more scenes to show us how much they know each other while also being silly little boys. Moving on. We need more cameos. No, not like that. I don't mean in the same way that Fisk was introduced in the last 2 episodes of Hawkeye so he could later appear in Echo. No. We need more accurate side characters. Introduce Frenchie and Layla running their own side hustle before they're forced to get into trouble. It's always better to throw us into already established connections between characters. Think Elektra in Daredevil Season 2. And speaking of Daredevil, more street-level heroes. Who wouldn't want to see a live-action team-up between Moon Knight and the Punisher? Or Ms. Marvel? Or Jack Russell? What? Who said that? I mean, he's already there! We need to see this iconic duo. Once. Just once. Please. And speaking of street-level heroes, what about street-level fight? What about stakes? It would be incredible to get raw and meaningful fights with no CGI or special effects. Just good old powerful choreography. Better yet without the suit. But that's a personal preference. If you know, you know. It would also be amazing to tackle street-level stakes. We already saw Moon Knight save the world. We want to see him saving your average New Yorker or whichever city Marvel decides to terrorize next. Part of the reason why shows like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Hawkeye have worked so well in the past is because they gave us low but relatable stakes. It's harder to feel a connection to everybody on the planet whenever planet Earth is in danger than to feel for a family who lost their home because a drug dealer decides to light the building on fire. Give us smaller, more impactful stories and we'll be sad. And last but not least, and this will only make sense to a handful of people, but I got you. I mean, it's just a personal request at this point. Give us more Egyptian bangers. That's it. That's the tweet. The music on this show is phenomenal. Everybody thank Hisham Nazi's mother for giving birth to him because it's great. It's genuinely one of the best things I've ever heard. We got such an incredible soundtrack to the show, and we spruced it up by some street-level Egyptian music. It was the perfect combo. So thank you, Marvel, for that choice. I'd be so interested to know how that conversation went. Just how were they able to pitch it? How did they explain it? That's something I'd like to know. But that's it. We're counting the days until we get a season 2. If you agree with anything I said, let me know. And also let me know what you'd like to see in a potential season 2. In a prayer circle tomorrow at 12 a.m. I'm kidding. For legal purposes, this is a joke. But as always, I will be seeing you very, very soon. Bye! Ooh. Please. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's all good. It's all good.